Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The 14th Finance Commission's report has been released. The most important recommendation among the many is to raise the devolution of states' share of tax revenues to 42% of the total from the existing 32%, a 10% hike. This is being seen as an important step towards the government's promise of taking the country on the path of cooperative federalism. The key aspect of this recommendation, which has been accepted by the government, is that the panchayats and urban local bodies will be getting funds directly, a badly felt need for years. It would mean the states would have more flexibility to decide its own schemes and plans. There are other recommendations of the Commission aimed at fiscal discipline and consolidation, as well as some basic changes in the structure and management of finances. We will discuss today some key recommendations of the 14th Finance Commission and how path-breaking it is. To discuss this, I have with me an eminent panel of guests. NC Saxena, former member of the National Advisory Council, among many other posts he has held in the government and outside the government. Dr. Arvind Virmani, former advisor in the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and a well-known economist. Professor Praveen of the Center for Economic Studies and Planning, JNU, and Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy, member, National Institute of Public Finance and Planning. Welcome to all of you. Dr. Virmani, how do you look at this? This is being touted. Touted as the biggest thing which has happened as far as center-state relationship are concerned, as far as the fiscal relationship between the central and states are concerned.
In my view, it's a structural change which goes along with the abolition of the Planning Commission. So I think there are two parts of the two sides of the same coin, because one without the other, in my view, would not be effective. So basically what it means is that many of the funds which were being transited or tracked through the Planning Commission will go directly to the states. But the counterpart of that, which we still have to see in the budget, is that those schemes will have to be wound down because clearly with 10% less resources, the government can no longer play the same role in those schemes. Now, the way I see the federalism issue, just to complete, is that the states now have full responsibility without the Planning Commission looking over their shoulders on what is in the states list, which is largely social sectors and also the concurrent list.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's how I would view this change.
No, I have a slightly different viewpoint. In itself, in the short run, it may not make any change. The reason being that Government of India...
Any change, when you say any change at the states level?
Both at the state level and the Government of India level. What will happen is that today there are about 12 large centrally sponsored programs in which Government of India's share is, say, around 75% to 90%. What will happen is all these schemes will continue, state share will go up,
right,
and Government of India's share will go down. So therefore, take for instance ICDS. ICDS, Government of India pays 90% of the salaries of Anganwadi workers and Anganwadi helpers. This will come down to 50% and the state share will go up, which means that the 1 lakh crore that the states will get extra will all get absorbed in the increased share of the state. So in the short run, unless you also decide to wind up the programs, now in the government...
They are talking of some 30 schemes.
No, they have only said that we will wind up 8. They have not named those 8 schemes. But my hunch is that these would be very small, minor schemes, and the larger major schemes will not be wound up. That's one point. But the other point which has not attracted any attention is about the horizontal devolution, which means how is the money flowing, how is the money being divided among various states. Now,
there is a formula which they have...
Yes. Now, although for the first time, they have said that population growth after 1971 will also be taken into account. But still, if you look at the final figures of devolution, you still find that there is not enough justice is not being done to poorer states. I have got the figures with me. Take UP for instance. Share of poverty in UP, if there are 100 poor people in India, then 22 of them live in UP. Their share in the 13th Finance Commission was 19.68%. It has come down to 17.96%.
There are some states like UP and all which have come down.
UP has come down, Bihar has come down.
Yes.
So therefore, rather than increasing their share because of giving some weightage to the increase in population, we are still following the 1971 formula for the income for which 50% weightage is given and 17% weightage is being. So therefore, because of that weightage, there is a lot of injustice being done to those states where unfortunately population growth has been high, and a state like Kerala, which has only 0.89% of poor people live in Kerala, its share has increased from 2.3% to 2.5%.
No, that is exactly the point. That's very important. Bhanumurthy, what is the logic behind what they have done?
No, I think
they are saying that are they also, they're talking of performance actually.
Right.
Performance as well as there are is there a performance aspect to this?
No, I think
then what is the
if you look at the devolution formula, I think in the 13th Finance Commission there used to be something called fiscal discipline,
right,
for which there is a weightage. Now in this 14th Finance Commission, I mean there is no weightage for the fiscal discipline. I mean, having said that, overall, I think the framework that have been adopted by the 14th Finance Commission seems to be consistent with the new government strategy in terms of cooperative federalism. And I think it was, if I'm not really wrong, it goes back to the pre-1980 situation where the large part of the resources were being given to the states. I mean, large part of freedom has been given to the states in terms of expenditures for their own resources. I think in the 80s,
we got into this. Not just expenditure. They're not talking only of expenditure. They're talking of planning at the states level, so that there's more, not just fiscal freedom but also planning freedom and legislative freedom.
The projects, I think the projects, I mean, it's suitable to their respective states, now can be taken up at the state level.
So there won't be a one-size-fit-all kind of schemes.
But I think it's a one-size-fit-all to some extent, from one nature to another nature.
Why would you say that?
Now we're saying that everybody gets 42%, I mean, the total 42% goes to the states, but we are not really sure in this whole debate. Have we taken up, are we really concerned about the absorptive capacity of these states?
No, we have to come to that. No, that's a separate question. We'll come to that. But this, as far as the formula is concerned, as far as the formula is concerned, do you have a problem?
No, I mean the distribution for states, that is really not my subject. I don't find anything to disagree with him because I don't know the details of that. But what I was saying is, I think I'm very clear on this one size fits all. Clearly, when Planning Commission develops schemes, it has to be to everybody, all states. So I have seen this many times. I remember working 10 years ago on the backward areas. I looked at the states and found they were all contiguous districts and wanted to propose a backward area thing. When it became a scheme, it covered the whole country.
Right.
You could never, I mean, everything is general.
Right.
So you have a poverty scheme, it applies same to everybody, etc. I mean, there is little bit of attempt at flexibility, but it never works. So I'm very clear that if the money is transferred directly to states, then it becomes their responsibility. Absolutely. Whether you want to spend it on poverty or malnutrition or the backward area development, they have to decide depending on what is their
So that's a good
problem.
thing. No, that's a good thing as far as it.
No, I don't think that there are problems with that.
There may be problems, but on the face of it, it looks good.
I don't think so.
Okay. Dr. Praveen,
you see
how do you look at this?
On the whole, it might be a move in what one may consider.
Sorry to interrupt. See, this has been the demand of the states for years. They have been saying that we need more funds. Let us decide what needs to be done. If you look at the face of it, this is exactly what some people, the states wanted actually 50% of it. Now they are getting 42% at least.
I endorse that point of view. I certainly agree with the view that on the whole, it is a move in the right direction.
Yes.
And of course, it's a strongly felt needs of the states which are being answered to, etc. All that is certainly true. The point where I would concur with Dr. Saxena is that it has certain obvious difficulties on the face of it to begin with, and beyond that, once you start doing numbers more carefully, the number crunching, etc., more carefully, there will be several other issues which might come up. So on the face of it, the first issue that you have to talk about is that it certainly is going to disrupt the 12th plan transfers. That is
Right.
obvious. Right?
Professor,
All kinds of things have been...
I think we need to put this on record. Professor Abhijit Sen, one of the members, has given a dissent note, and one of the points he has made is this. What do you say?
Right. So that is obvious. And then when it comes to issues of horizontal transfer, there the concern which again has been expressed by Professor Sen and a number of academics who are looking at this particular document right now is exactly which are the things which will be wound up and how does that impact on different states, and obviously it will impact on different states differentially. Now, for instance, if backward regions grant fund
Exactly.
or normal central assistance that is curtailed significantly, there are states like Tripura, Uttaranchal, Bihar and so on and so forth, which will be hit relatively badly. So we have to look at all those numbers. And the final point, as my first remark that I want to make, is that obviously this implies that the centre's fiscal space is shrinking by 10%.
Exactly.
Right? Now, if that happens, what are the implications of that?
Exactly.
Apart from these specific schemes, in terms of whatever are considered the priority areas and so on, how many of these priority concerns can the centre, in a context where India is a country which has one of the lowest tax GDP ratios if you compare India with the comparables, right? So if we take all this into account, then as I said, on the face of it, one begins with a good feeling, but then there are all kinds of concerns which we need to take into account.
Okay, we will have to look at the small words. In that.
Let me tell you another complaint which used to be there. I've heard it for 20 years. The complaint used to be that in most schemes, there's a state contribution. And the richer states always have enough money.
Yes.
So they actually benefit from most of the planning commission schemes,
Right.
while the poorer don't.
Because they don't have their own.
It's going to be the opposite. I personally heard this complaint for 15, 20 years. So if that was true then this is a good step, because that should no longer be true, because you're getting 10% extra, everybody is getting. I'm not saying whether the formula needs correction or not, that may well be true. I'm not disputing that, because as I said, I don't know the details of that and how it's done. That's not my subject. But as far as the general complaint is concerned, it has addressed that complaint. So in principle, the poorer states will have more flexibility, not
that's
less.
exactly the point. The poorer states will get. They're talking of 11 states which will get more.
In fact, let me tell you what are the 11 states.
Yes.
Apart from the special category states, the states that they have selected are Andhra Pradesh,
Right.
Kerala and West Bengal.
Andhra Pradesh, obviously, for political reasons.
No, not at all. The reason is that these are the states where their own revenue collection is very poor. West Bengal's record is awful. They never collect their revenues.
Right.
With the result that they go to Finance Commission and start begging, give us more money. This is not fair. You are giving more money to cover the deficit to richer states. Poorer states are not here. Let me also say the other point about, whether more devolution to the states is a good point or not. Theoretically, it is, provided the states have the capacity and will.
Absolutely.
In fact, capacity, forget about capacity. Where is the will? I know, if you look at the states, there are many problems. States never report their data correctly. Look at the data on sanitation.
The data issues are
look at the data on malnutrition. I have the figures with me which show, Government of India's data shows that 10% children are malnourished. All states, even states like Tamil Nadu,
Sir,
show only 0.1%.
No, correct. I've heard you talking about this several times in several forums.
That is not.
But my question is this: now the states will have to be more responsible. They can't give exaggerated figures about anything.
It is very easy to say, but what happens is, look at the Secretary of Education of state government. 90% of the time he is busy doing transfers and postings or looking at contracts, etc. Joint Secretary of Elementary Education in Government of India doesn't deal with transfers and postings. He has got tenure of 5 years. Secretary of Education is changed after every 1 year. So unless you look at
these are institutional changes which they have to make. The state governments have to take responsibility
neither the last government nor this government made any effort to improve governance at the state level.
That is okay. That's another thing. I want all of you to when Professor Abhijit Sen in his dissent note, he talks about he says that 42% is too much. It should have been at 38%. He says 38% was better. And then when the institutional changes take place, then you could have raised it after some time. Do you agree with that
No, I think
argument?
no, I think it's what Professor Abhijit Sen is talking about. It's a smooth transition.
Exactly.
From 32% to
And that for that smooth transition to happen, he says there has to be certain institutional changes which needs to take place.
Yeah, I think some of the things that Dr. Saxena already pointed out. I mean, the changes had to be taking place both at the state level as well as the central level.
Right.
No, that right now we have, as Professor Jha also pointed out, we have something 12 plan. Are we going to close all the 12th plan the rest of the period?
That is
I think
that is also a point which
So
is
let
being
me-
raised.
It makes no difference
Let
at
me
all.
address
Yes.
the question which Mr. Saxena has raised. If you look at the Niti Aayog, and I've written on this, there were two things which I highlighted, which I noticed new. One was the question of capacity building for the states. I think the first time it's been given the prominence that it has. The second was transfer of comparative experiences, that good experiments in one state should go to the other. So I agree that governance needs to be improved in states. It definitely does. And that's where the Niti Aayog comes in. They are supposed to be a kind of advisory body and they have to
Absolutely.
help. But ultimately, I don't think the center can run the states. The states must be held responsible by the voters. The Niti Aayog should get the information to the public. They should have ratings and rankings of
That
states
is
on
what,
various
today
indicators.
the
And they
vice
should
chair,
give it to the state public.
vice chairman of the
Otherwise,
the vice
everybody
chairman-
just blame the planning commission. Wherever they had a problem they cannot achieve, blame the planning commission,
no.
say they are doing this, that and the other.
I don't think that Praveen, I don't think the Niti Aayog, the Niti Aayog vice chairman has written today an article saying, praising about this finance commission thing and saying that states will now have to deal with Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog will have to give them all the best practices and things like that. You think that this is the way forward?
This is highly exaggerated. This kind of, in some sense, celebration of Niti Aayog. In any case, in my judgment, Planning Commission was supposed to be doing all this, and in many ways, it had been doing all this. So sort of this transition from Planning Commission to Niti Aayog in terms of positives, to my mind, is highly exaggerated. If anything, many good things which we had as part of Planning Commission probably will suffer because of structural issues, etc., which are part of it. But in any case, our debate or our discussion today is not about Planning Commission versus Niti Aayog, so let's not get into that. But in terms of, as I said, simply Niti Aayog welcoming it is very much in the league which is saying that yes, it is indeed a good thing. Now, Professor Sen's point, Abhijit Sen's point, that it could have been better to go slow has a lot of merit. And I don't think we should, simply dismiss that. So I think there is substantial sort of concern there. And fundamentally, it is because of, once this kind of transfer has taken place, several critical priority issues, etc., which were with the center, with the union government, what happens to that? In any case, we know.
That question still remains. In fact, there is no clarity on that.
Let me just clarify here. The 32% to 42% will make a difference only when Government of India decides to wind up some of the flagship programs, which this government is not going to do. So therefore,
you're guessing that, but there are reports saying that they may wind up. We'll have to wait for the.
If they do it, then there are other problems of governance. Because if you look at the structure of bureaucracy in the states, there are too many people in the support positions, babus, clerks, orderlies, drivers who are not needed, and very few people in the line positions, doctors, nurses, teachers, even policemen, they are absent. So therefore, unless you change the nature of bureaucracy, increase more people who can supervise and who can deliver, rather than people who are just in support positions.
I want all of you also to, now they're talking of funds which will go directly to the panchayats and urban local bodies.
That was earlier in the 13th Finance Commission.
was there in the-
That was earlier also.
No, but
There's
this is nothing new,
change.
so you are saying.
There's nothing new.
But is there has a structure been established at the panchayat and the urban local bodies level to absorb? Because the earlier question which you raised, absorbing these kind of funds and being able to use it in a useful manner.
Panchayats for a single panchayat, it does not come to much. It may be just about 1,000 crore, whereas a panchayat may get about 50,000 crore or 50,000
rupees.
Not 50,000, at least 5 lakh rupees from Narega or other schemes. So therefore, panchayats are more interested in construction-based schemes, and this amount, a small amount which goes to them, makes very little difference.
Okay.
Let me give you another example of this all size fits all. Narega, at least when I was involved in the beginning, was supposed to be, was most vitally needed in states which have fluctuations in employment because of rainfall.
Right.
As against irrigated states.
Right.
When you have a scheme like that, it becomes uniform and standard. There is no difference. You're addressing
but
a
this whole
completely
idea is
problem
to-
which does not exist. Why? Because everybody wants the money. So you have a scheme which may be very valid for Rajasthan and other states
but it's
where
my question, I have a
there's
question.
rainfall irrigated area and lots of fluctuation in employment demand, but it's applied to everybody.
No, my question, Bhanumurthy,
And
is
so,
that
the key thing is to transfer the finances. There is no change in administration.
No,
If
transferring the
administration is
finances.
bad now, it will be bad later.
In fact,
it has to be improved. I don't see, on that point, I differ with Mr. Saxena. Just because money is going to be transferred doesn't mean the administration is going to get worse. It is what it is right now. The money will be
No, I don't
going in
think
a
he said
different
it's
way.
going to
There
get
are,
worse, but
there are good
whether it
states. There are good states. There are rogue states. In a rogue state, you will have more airports in Chief Minister's constituency. You will have more people, more MLAs going to Switzerland. More
statues.
That's how more statues. That's how money would be spent.
No,
it won't be spent on health.
I think-
Bhanumurthy, my question is this.
Yes.
When we are talking of devolution, what is the state role of the state now with increased finances? The same question which, are they in a position to, most of the states, are they in a position to absorb this kind
No,
of
I think that's the most apprehensive. That's the apprehensive
Biggest
part of this whole devolution. Even with the 32% devolution, they still run a revenue surpluses at the state level. So where they don't have really capacity, if you look at the numbers, the revenue deficit is in a surplus actually. Revenue surpluses are there. Given that kind of situation, if you give more money,
No, about capacity,
and who is
I
going
have figures with me. Let me just give figures on Narega. If Narega is meant for rural poor, so the total expenditure, if you divide by the number of rural poor, you find that in Bihar, in 2013-14 last year, you spent only 600 rupees, 621 to be exact. Himachal Pradesh, 10,754.
Per head.
Per head. Andhra Pradesh, 8,700. Bihar, 620. UP 731, Assam 761, Jharkhand 877. So the difference is between 620 and 10,000. That is the stage of capacity.
No, but what is the point you're taking?
Girish,
Point I'm trying to take is that the states neither have the capacity nor the will to run the schemes. So therefore, give them money. But you must have an authority somewhere to see that this money is well spent.
That is the point.
That is not being done.
No, Praveen Jha, now... No, I have a question. My question is this. What Mr. Saxena is talking about, now who is going to monitor these things? Was the Planning Commission would monitor these things? Now would Niti Aayog do this? With additional finances which the state governments have, how are they utilizing it? Who is Ministry of Finance?
Niti Aayog is a toothless organization.
No. Obviously, Niti Aayog will not be in a position. And in any case, as regards this centrally sponsored schemes, we have to wait and see what are the changes which come about. And then we can see, so with the transfer, some of these will be transferred to the states, but it's quite possible that the union government in terms of monitoring might have a say, right? But, in terms of the devolution, etc., that we were talking about earlier, what happens to the flagship schemes and so on, I have no doubts whatsoever that there will be considerable dilution, even if you're not doing away with some schemes. That's number one. Number two, when we are talking about capacity of states, it is something which is so very sort of well known, very well documented, that capacity itself is a function of resources, and you have a situation where, for instance, in a state after state, you simply do not have personnel, right? I mean, this is true of UP, this is true of Himachal, this is true of so many states. Of course, poorer states have this problem of not having personnel in place at different levels. And of course, one can go along with Dr. Saxena in this, that it is certain categories where the shortage is hitting those states even more. Whether it's doctors,
that is exactly the point. Now we are giving you...
No, Girish, let me just complete. The final point that I'm trying to make in this regard is that when we talk of absorptive capacity, you have to look at it in a comprehensive fashion. Why is it that the states do not have that absorptive capacity? It's not something which has happened just overnight. We have basically messed up with the system in a manner where their absorptive capacity has been totally messed up.
Okay,
That
messed
needs
up,
to
but
be kept in mind.
messed up because of shortage of funds. One of the reasons, one of the things which we have heard from state governments is we don't have funds. Have additional police personnel, we don't have funds. Have additional teachers,
on
we don't
that,
have
let me-
funds.
let me give
Now they are
fact.
saying take the funds and do it yourself.
Let me
you
give a
if you
fact.
want-
Let me just give a fact. I went to Assam ATI. For each teaching person who's teaching, there were 13 support staff. I went to Manchester. For 3 teachers, there were only 1 support staff. So we have funds.
Exactly.
We have funds to
No,
appoint.
Virmani, we are running out of
We have
time.
funds
No,
to
I want to
appoint
come to, I want to
class
come
4
to this.
employees.
No,
I want to
think
come to.
if you look at the flagship programs of the Ministry of Rural Development, many of the flagship programs are sitting with huge unspent balances.
Okay. No, I want to shift to this, because we're running out of time. The effect of this on the center. Now, when the finance minister comes out with his budget, what kind of problems is he going to have in trying to? Will it have effect on the fiscal deficit? What is it? What do you expect?
Well, let me tell you what I expect, which is kind of different from what was said earlier. And that's my expectation. It's not a question of argument, right? So what I expect, for example, is that they've laid out certain schemes which they are interested in, whether it's the Swachh Bharat or 100 cities or whatever. Let's say 5 or 10 schemes which they are in principle initiating as new schemes. I feel that the focus will be on those. My judgment is all the old schemes, except for this minor exception which the PM has said in his letter, he said we will continue to support poverty and something.
Health and education. Health and education.
Health education.
So that's a general statement, but I think the focus will have to shift drastically if we really believe in fiscal federalism. If we don't, then it's a different matter. If we don't believe it, then
effect on the budget.
No, actually, if you look at the action taken
the
report
problem of the
today,
finance minister.
action taken report today, they only accepted the headline, that is 32 to 42. The many of the other recommendations, I think they will work out, and before they implement, I think there'll be some more discussion. As far as the fiscal deficit is concerned, if you look at the consolidated fiscal roadmap that the Finance Commission, I think they will stick to that. That is 3.6% for the central, and whatever revenue deficit target they have suggested.
I think
I expect
very
that the
quickly,
social
Praveen.
expenditure will go down.
Social expenditure will
So the
go
union
down.
government.
Okay, we'll wait and watch another few days before we. You want to
Yeah,
quickly add something?
Yeah, I just want to add, it's not going down. That 10% which is supposed to be handled social schemes, I have
It has
again
been-
looked at the
it has
constitution
been
list.
shifted, it will be
Health,
shifted.
education, welfare are the responsibility of the states. That money
But
is
we are
going to go
talking
to
about
them.
the union
Okay, we are
budget.
completely
Girish,
run
we
out
are
of
talking
time.
the
So
union
it
budget
should not
and,
be in
the
and
union
what,
budget.
what
It's in
happens
the
there.
revolution.
A few
we are talking the union budget. That was the
a few days, if we'll have to wait for a few days, we'll get to know what the finance minister will be doing after this major path-breaking thing which seems to have happened. But as all my panelists said, there's still doubt. We'll have to wait and see the small letters in this whole thing. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.